Welcome back to Explain America. This is your host, Kyle Becker. The American public is still reeling after the brutal shooting of two National Guard members in Washington, D.C. And a former DNC chair has a familiar face to blame for this, and that is President Donald Trump. Now, this former DNC chair had some very despicable comments about this shooting, and once again, she is letting Democrats off the hook for the policies that have led to this shooting. But before we get into this story, please like, share, and comment at Explain America. Join us. We appreciate your support for common sense journalism. Now, a National Guard member has tragically died, and another is clinging to life after an Afghan refugee who was given asylum in the United States and was actually admitted into a CIA program. Well, that has led to a lot of us reassessing our policies on allowing asylum into the United States and our vetting of those who work for the United States government. But Debbie Wasserman Schultz, a former DNC chair who was actually implicated in fixing an election on behalf of Hillary Clinton, well, she had someone to blame for this, and we should not be surprised that it was President Donald Trump. She took to the airwaves and laid into him, blaming him for deploying National Guard troops to the nation's capital as provoking this senseless act of violence. Let's watch.
Would an individual have flown across the country to target law enforcement officers in Washington, D.C.? And, the answer is likely no. So why wasn't the president's first thought, wow, maybe I should reconsider deploying military troops in the nation's capital or in any city, particularly not when they haven't coordinated closely with the leadership of these cities. We need to make sure that we have tight and appropriate and proper vetting. If there were gaps that admitted this person, they would have failed over multiple levels of gaps, and this individual was trusted enough to participate in assisting our military during the war in Afghanistan. So I just think, the president looks everywhere except inward to blame his own policies. We need to make sure that we don't have our military deployed in our cities where handling law enforcement responsibilities, and we need to make sure that we address gun violence. We certainly need to make sure we always have the proper and appropriate and tight vetting processes, and those should be reviewed. But it's never the president's fault or his policies when it comes to his reaction, and it's pretty disgusting.
Well, it's very ironic that Debbie Wasserman Schultz blames Donald Trump also for failing to turn inward and to assess himself and his own policies, because it was actually the crime rates in these Democrat-run cities that prompted the President of the United States to deploy the National Guard troops in order to protect the local population. And as we've seen, a lot of local residents were grateful for President Trump sending those National Guard troops. But instead, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, she is letting the Democrats off the hook for failing the American people and for putting their lives at risk. And how is it the fault of National Guard troops for simply being there to protect and serve the public if a refugee had come to them and shot them? How is it their fault? How is it anyone's fault except the person that took their life and the reason that the National Guard troops were there to begin with? And that is the Democrats, who need to get more serious about their crime-fighting policies and to protect the American people so more people don't have to die, whether it be National Guard troops or the American people themselves. So if you have any thoughts about this story, please like, share, and comment at Explain America. Join us. We appreciate your support for common sense journalism.